We have a special program this morning, a debate in which the former National Assembly member for Serekunda and joint leader of the People's Organization for Independence and Socialism, DOI, is facing off against a well-known activist and social commentator. The debate is the idea of Halifa Sallah in response to Madi Jobarteh's comment as the funeral and tribute service for Salah Sanding took place on Tuesday. On Friday, the 13th of January 2023, welcome to this special edition of Coffee Time with Peter Gomez, coming to you live on West Coast Radio on 92.1 on FM, featuring Mr. Halifa Sallah debating Mr. Madi Jobarteh for what the outspoken activist said earlier in the week about some of our political leaders, including Mr. Salah, as the country finally laid to rest a man widely hailed as a national hero. Let's remind ourselves of what Maddie said on Tuesday as part of a taxpayer-funded funeral and tribute ceremony for Salah Sanding organized by the Barrow-led government.
The President, Adama Barrow, and all the coalition leaders, coalition parties, they benefited from Salah, but they all betrayed Salah. From Adama Barrow to Ousainou Darboe, to Halifa Sallah, to Sidia Jatta, to Fatoumatta Tambajang, to Assetou Touré, Amai Fati, Henry Gomez, and so on. All those coalition leaders, they betrayed Salah. And so it's a shame that they all came here to try to show remorse, to try to celebrate Salah, yet failed to implement the ideals, the objectives which made Salah stand up. So they have all betrayed Salah, and that is very sad.
Mr. Sallah, Mr. Jobarteh, welcome to West Coast Radio. And if I may start right away with you, Mr. Sallah, what is wrong with what we just heard there? What did Madi not get right to warrant this open debate to, I suppose, set the record straight as far as you're concerned?
It is my conviction that criticism must be based on truth, good faith, and the public interest. Because I am an elderly statesperson, people should criticize me, but based on truth, good faith, and the public interest. What Maddie said was not true, was not based on good faith, and to mislead the public is not in the public interest. That's why I challenge him to indict me.
Okay. Maddie, what is Mr. Sallah missing in what you were trying to make, the point you were trying to make, and what is that point to begin with?
Yeah, to begin with, I think Mr. Sallah missed the very things, values that he expressed just now. Because certainly I said the truth. Salah Sanding rose up on April 14th. In his hands, I understand, had the gopher demands. And of course, on his placard and in his speech, called for electoral reforms. This is April 2014, 2016. Earlier, in 2015, GOFA, that is Gambia Opposition for Electoral Reforms, constituted by DOI, UDP, GMC, GPDP, and NRP, signed and submitted 11 points for electoral reforms to the IEC, to the President, and to Jesse Jackson, and I think to the United Nations or the AU. The signatories to that petition were Ousainou Darboe and Halifa Sallah. Now, that GOFA demand goes back to 2012 when that GOFA itself was established. Now, we can go back to 2010. UDP, when Femi Peters in 2009 was sentenced to 1 year in jail for using a loudspeaker, UDP challenged the Public Order Act in the courts, which decision came later in 2018 by the Supreme Court. Earlier, to still go back, in 2001, when the students were massacred in 2000, an indemnity act was put before the bill was put before the National Assembly. At the time, Hamad Ba and Sidia Jatta were members of the National Assembly. In protest, they marched out to not even discuss that indemnity act. Now, these are laws on our elections, laws regarding our freedoms, our rights as sovereign citizens of this country, which have been well captured in the manifesto of Adama Barrow as the candidate of the coalition, and as well highlighted in the MOU of the coalition. So that when we get to 2017, therefore, Halifa Sallah needs to tell us whether himself as a National Assembly member, as a member of DOI, and all the political parties that constitute the coalition, whether the coalition exists or crumbled or not, regardless, they were the parties that came around the coalition under president, whether they had effected that govern demands for electoral reforms. Such that when we look at the manifesto of Barrow, on the chapter or section on democracy and rule of law, they highlighted 22 issues about reforms and other things. Out of that 22, they did only 4. That is, to remove Section 91(1)(d) to secure the tenure of they themselves, the National Assembly members, if they have to leave their seat. Number 2, to remove Section 62 about the age limit. Number 3, the Freedom of Information Act, which came into place eventually. And number 4 is to so actually they actually did only 3 out of the 22. Okay. And when you look at those 3, directly benefit them as National Assembly members, as politicians, as political parties. So what untruth, what falsehood have I said?
Okay.
And I want to challenge Mr.
Okay. I'll throw the question to him. Thank you, Maddie. Mr. Salah, back to you. Maddie has just established, according to him, the truthfulness of what he said on Tuesday. What do you find untrue about what he said on Tuesday and what he just said moments ago?
What Maddie has said right now proves that my contract with the Gambian people and the Gambian nation has been fulfilled to the letter. Everything he is reading, including that petition for Jammeh to facilitate electoral reform, my hand is there.
What he said out of 22
I'm
points.
coming. No. I'm saying everything he's reading. Now, my hand is there in drafting it.
Okay.
To the Barrow Manifesto. Everything. I fulfill my contract. He said I betrayed Sandeng. How? His proof, Sandeng had what was our petition and called for electoral reform. Young people of the different parties called each other to talk about demonstration. Did the Doi youth participate in demonstration? No. Why? Because Doi is enlightened and enlightens its people. Section 134 of the amended, as he said, we introduced the petition in 2015. July, what did Jammeh do? To come up with a blanket reform of the Elections Act, requiring 1 million to register a political party, 500,000 to be a presidential candidate, 50,000 to be a National Assembly member, 10,000 to be a councillor. If you are a resident outside, you cannot lead a political party. So essentially, he was making it impossible for political parties to function. Is that a positive response to our petition? No. So what was our option? 134 says that 6 months before elections, the Independent Electoral Commission must not engage in any significant change of the Elections Act. So if you go and petition, what he does not know, Peter,
yes,
on the 14th of April, yes, I was here with my colleague, Usainu Dabo. We were supposed to engage in a debate. We could not because we were told that some people were arrested. And your radio station was not willing to take the risk, not knowing what we were going to say. Mm-hmm. It was then that I wanted to pin my colleague that it is good to tell all our people the truth, that he was above 65 and would not be able to stand in the 2016 presidential election. And that 134 has already indicated we cannot change Elections Act 6 months before. So it was a hopeless situation. Jammeh will not change, effect any reform. So the only route was to build a coalition. Unfortunately, we could not enter the debate. Salah was arrested. So, where is our betrayal? If your leaders do not educate you to know what you're supposed to do, and we educate our people to know what to do, and what do? We proceeded with coalition building. And on the 2nd of December 2016, for the first time in Gambian history, we uprooted Jammeh. Our tactic and strategy were implemented to the letter. And it succeeded. That is the truth. If anybody betrayed Sandeng, let him look for somebody else, not us. Now, when we took over, we had the objective clearly spelled out of a 3-year term. But people must understand what an agreement is and what a constitution is. When we appointed or elected Barrow, we had the power to write all those things that we wrote. It's good faith. But when Barrow took over, he took over as the executive president of the Gambia, under the constitution of the Gambia.
Meaning what?
He did not owe any allegiance to any coalition or anybody. He could have only done so in good faith. And we were trying to exploit good faith. But when he took over, all those who were around him encouraged him to build up the executive might of appointing and dismissing ministers at will. An elementary knowledge of our constitution knows that it is cabinet that formulates policy. I had no power to formulate policy. It is the National Assembly that considers bills. We had 4 members in the National Assembly. Under the Constitution, you have to have simple majority, 2/3 majority in some portion, or 3/4 majority, such as changing the Constitution, before you can have any effect in the National Assembly. And let me educate him again. You see, they talk and talk and talk, and they don't understand the Constitution, they don't understand the laws. You see, let me just give you an example quickly, because we don't have the time.
Sure, go ahead.
There is an election bill currently. If you look at clause 147 of the election bill, it is in line with section 130 of the Elections Decree 1996, which states that if you want to stand as a candidate, National Assembly election, you must be granted leave of absence during the period of the election, and you return to your work. That's what the Elections Act 1996 says, 130. 147 clause 147 of the election bill, that's what it's saying. It wants to introduce that. But the Constitution, section 170, is saying that you must ask for 1 year leave without pay.
Okay.
So when these people, and you can see, we unlike Maddie, you see, we've written, me and Sam, a whole analysis of the elections bill to guide the nation. So you see, you can effect the introduction of a bill. The National Assembly can, if they are inexperienced, even pass the bill. And then somebody will go to the Supreme Court and throw it in the dustbin. Because it is against the provision of the Constitution.
Okay. All right. Maddie,
No, let me conclude.
Okay.
Let me conclude, just to show that he has no basis of argument. You see, for us, there was no basis of any of this reform. The primary thing was the constitutional reform. It was introduced. You were there, everybody heard. I told them that what they were doing was a long journey. They were not sincere. That the constitution that we were considering was not like 1996, when these people had suspended the 1970 constitution, and they can go into a spree to amend anything they want. 1997 constitution states very clearly that if you want to change it under section 226, you can only take two routes. The ones that could be changed by the National Assembly without a referendum, and the others that must be changed with a referendum. I said, if we want the journey to be short, let us blanket change those ones that we could change in the National Assembly, and then blanket take those ones to referendum. And this was a time when there was at least some understanding between the UDP. They were part of the government. It could have been easily done. They did not take that route. By the time they come again, their internal contradiction had built up. Some had been expunged from removed from the cabinet, and the National Assembly he's talking about was no longer a uniform body of a coalition. It was people elected on their party ticket, and they were operating on party lines. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sallah. Madi, Mr. Sallah saying that
I get the point.
all the 22 points actually...
I get the point, and certainly Mr. Sallah can't educate me about the Constitution, with all due respect to him. And in this, I know the Constitution, and as much as he does. And what he's presented so far, if anything, is an attempt to mislead me, which also he cannot do. You see, Peter, no one doubts the efforts of Mr. Sallah pre-2016 or pre-2017, and many other Gambians contributed to what we eventually had to remove this dictatorship. There's no doubt about that. But this country is a civilized state, nation. We have a state, and the state has obligations. And officials in that state have obligations to perform by law. Now, Mr. Sallah, when we got to 2017, he said to the media that he does not wish to take a position in the cabinet, that he wants to go to the National Assembly. I can quote him. Fatou Network reported Halifa Sallah reveals intention to contest parliamentary elections on 27 February 2017. We need to get the best National Assembly that acts as an oversight institution, holds the government accountable, and stands for the Gambian people. This is the assembly we want. So you see, the National Assembly has a purpose. National Assembly members have an obligation. He and his coalition members can argue here who did what and so on. As a citizen, as a sovereign citizen, what I know is Halifa Sallah, like Adama Barrow, and all elected and appointed public officials have a duty towards me to perform. And they have not performed that. Because the evidence is there. The Elections Act, regardless of how much summary or analysis is done, the Elections Act, 7 years is sitting in the National Assembly. It has not been done. Now, you said we look at this constitution piecemeal. They didn't do that. But nothing stops Halifa Sallah on his own as a National Assembly member, for which he has the power to do, to submit a private member's bill to target any specific section of the constitution to change. Now, they didn't do that, but Samba Jallow, minority leader at the time, 2017, submitted a private member's bill for the changing of section 91(1)(d). And they voted for it. The exorbitant fees that Jammeh imposed disregarding their 2015 proposals. When they came 2017, they immediately amended that section to reduce the fees for President, National Assembly, Mayor, Councillor. Why didn't Halifa Sallah submit a member's bill for a term limit? A member's bill for absolute majority? a members' bill for the creation of a constituency boundaries commission, which are all established, stated in their manifesto. So Halifa got to understand this, all right? And because I see a lot of misleading stuff around, that regardless of what happened until 2017, when they drafted they drafted the MOU and the coalition, and Halifa went on the campaign talking about the value of the 3 years program to end self-perpetuating rule, to build. In 2019 October, he was standing on the floor of the parliament explaining how the coalition crumbled, that they want to save the Gambia. Halifa did not go to the National Assembly on the ticket of the coalition. He went there in his own personal volition. He chose to be a National Assembly member. He went on the ticket of DOI. Perform your function as a National Assembly member. You have an individual responsibility. Each one of them have an individual responsibility to perform their functions. Now, apart from this lack of legal reforms, institutional reforms, you look at the Auditor General's report, the massive corruption, the number of illegal, unconstitutional actions by this president. National Assembly members, you have an obligation. You have the power and the tool in the Constitution to discipline the executive. The president has multiple times conducted unconstitutional acts, and he was not held to account, to the point that even the Supreme Court declared the president's action unconstitutional in the case of Yakumba Jaita. There was no genuine, urgent matter to put articles of impeachment on the floor of the National Assembly for that action, because the Supreme Court itself said the president acted unconstitutionally. So our coalition political parties and their leaders who came to acquire the executive and the legislature, they had the powers in the constitution, in the standing orders, in other laws of the Gambia, to protect the Gambia, the best interest of the Gambia. But that hasn't happened. Halifa himself was the chair of the PEC committee, the Public Enterprises Committee. There is not a more corrupt sector of Gambian society than the public enterprises. Not only corrupt, but inefficient. And it was Halifa's duty to make sure our public enterprises, their enterprises, businesses, to raise revenue for the government. They don't do that. They don't pay dividend. Not only that, they don't deliver the services they are supposed to perform. And not only that, they are so corrupt, they mismanage public resources. It's in the Auditor General's report 2017 and 2018. So, look, Halifa inspired me personally. All right? And I have said every day that the DOI agenda, DOI idea, not only for Gambia, but Africa, that is it. But as he said at the beginning, he is a public official. He has to be held to account. And let Halifa humble down to realize that he's not infallible. And to take an honest, impartial review, analysis of his own performance and the performance of all of them. And then he will realize definitely they failed the Gambia from 2017 to 2023 right now.
Okay, so the debate seems to have moved from Halifa and the coalition members betraying Solo Sandeng.
It's all within that context.
To now about
it's all within that context.
His performance while he was
a
member of the National Assembly.
Yes, to be held to account.
Okay, let me come back to you, Mr. Salah. By the way, you're listening to Coffee Time with Peter Gomez. We're live on West Coast Radio 92.1 in the Gambia. A special program in which Mr. Salah is debating Madi Jobarteh. Mr. Salah, how do you react to everything that has been said in the last 5-10 minutes?
I really am more comfortable now after hearing what he has to say. If that is what he said, trying to indict me for my performance in the National Assembly, we would not have had this debate. I would have just considered what he said and determine whether it's relevant or not. I would not have wasted my time. Just allow me. But it is this element that I have betrayed Sandeng, which I wanted cleared, and I believe that is clear. Now my record. You see, this is the problem with people like Maddie. They are misleading a whole generation. If you go to the United States now, you will discover that any sitting congressman, senator, will be followed for how you vote in that Congress, the views you express in that Congress. We're not talking about utopia. These people are talking about utopia. I can understand them, that I can go in the National Assembly, put private members' bill, they kick it out. I will be showing. That's Maddie. Just show that you are doing something. I'm not made of that stuff. That's not me to go just to show. When I knew my constituency, we were only 4 in the National Assembly. We had no power in the National Assembly. And we knew who had power. And we knew their thinking. We knew their orientation. Just look at the Local Government Act when they aim to change that provision so that when you dismiss a person from a party, automatically you will not lose your seat in government. Clearly, that idea was complete separation of power, of party and state, and that's what should happen. A party helps a person to get to office. But once you are in office, you are a state official. So how can a party be allowed to remove a state official from office? It doesn't make sense. It's not a separation of party and state. But you can see the struggle in the National Assembly to amend that particular provision. That's the National Assembly we had. And he keep on repeating coalition. This was not a coalition National Assembly. He knows. The voting pattern in the National Assembly, he knows. There was nothing about coalition in that National Assembly. Everybody knows that.
True, yeah.
So it is Maddie who is trying to throw dust in people's eyes. And he's the one who has been misleading himself and a whole generation. We didn't have a coalition. So essentially, and at the same time, you had an executive president who could even dismiss his vice president without giving any reasons and constitute his cabinet as he wished. My God. That is the executive. This was not coalition executive. So forget about the coalition. After Barrow assumed office, it was no longer in existence. He can judge me by my own performance. But I can tell him, if he goes to the record and examine what I said and what I did in every stage of deliberation in the National Assembly, my colleagues will know that I was an asset to the National Assembly and that I had contributed my quota to the best of my ability and, in fact, in the national interest. So, to me, I believe...
But he says you didn't hold the SOEs, state-owned enterprises, to account as you should.
Again,
as chair of that particular...
What the reality is that this was being broadcast. Our proceedings were being broadcast. As chair of the Public Enterprise Committee, he was hearing the broadcast. Who on earth will say that we did not hold them into account? The problem of those SOEs, you can see the backlog. If you know elementary auditing, if you don't close your account and then come up with the next account, how can we ever hold such an institution into account? Because nothing was current. We were dealing with history, and we were trying to move from history to currency. That was my role. And yes, he can criticize, but I feel I have done what I could do to the best of my ability to push those public enterprises into currency so that they can be properly held into account. But essentially, what they have also failed to realize is that the issue of corruption is fully under the control of the audit. What they don't know is that the Auditor General, even though you have external auditors, all of them were under the control of the Auditor General. And the Auditor General, under the Constitution, has full powers that wherever corruption emerges, to ensure that the police are involved in investigation and that action is taken. It is not the National Assembly that takes people to court. The National Assembly can make recommendations. And obviously, what I can say with Maddie, as he has drifted into other issues is that, well, is it legitimate to look at my record and feel that I have not done what
He said you are not infallible. Did you ever claim infallibility?
Well, I think what I said at the beginning makes it clear that if he was just criticizing, I will look at it. Whatever is of substance, I may consider. What is not of substance, we put it in the dustbin.
Yeah, so Peter,
we have no qualms.
Definitely. First of all, to take great objection to Halifa's attempt to caricature me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right.
Okay, let me.
He's apologized.
Let me apologize.
I accept the apology.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, moving forward, you see, again, misleading and dodging responsibility, giving excuses and blaming others is what Halifa has been presented. In the U.S., congressmen and women, they submit bills. There are bills, laws in the United States named after individuals, hence voting law, for example. So, a National Assembly member, this is in the standing orders, it's in the Constitution that you have that obligation, that power to submit a bill. So there is nothing wrong to submit a bill, and it is not a showmanship. So, Halifa, the National Assembly has a purpose. Listening to you, I begin to wonder, then why did you go to the National Assembly? In fact, why should we have a National Assembly? Therefore, because the National Assembly has, our lives are in the hands of the National Assembly, practically. You have the powers. So, we have to hold them accountable. And again, that misleading comment that I am thinking in terms of the coalition, I know the whole story of the coalition. And in my piece, I had written that the coalition parties and politicians, individual and collectively, it is today because Halifa is sitting here. If Usaini Dabo sits here today, I will hold him to account. If Adama Barrow sits him here, I'll hold him to account personally. And so, regarding the SOEs, you see, the National Assembly has powers to end corruption. But they did not do it. The Auditor General in 2017, when he submitted his report 2021, he said in February 2021, the National Assembly Finance and Public Health Committee met to discuss the report and submitted recommendations to follow up on the prior year issues that remained unresolved, as well as crucial findings in the May 2017 audit report. The Constitution is very clear. The Auditor General submits to the National Assembly. National Assembly can cause more investigations and prosecutions for accountability. But they don't do that. The National Audit Report 2018 or 17 indicated government of the Gambia in 2017 provided loans to state-owned enterprises amounting to 11 billion. This was the time the 66 million in the special security account was talked about all over the place. But citizens forgot to realize, in fact, our state-owned enterprises, 11 billion. Now, from 2017 to date, the only public enterprise I have had provide a dividend to government is ports. In 2018 or 19, $5 million. In 2020, in the height of the COVID, $95 million. How do we explain that? So, the purpose of Halifa Sallah and all those National Assembly members is to make sure ports, GAMCEL, GNPC, and so on, deliver services, not just quality services to all Gambians. That is not taking place. If you have a house today in Boraba, you want electricity down there, NAWAC will tell you, buy your own poles. Dig your own ground to get water to your house. Why? A taxpaying, a citizen of this country, a public institution. So what has been the effect, the value of our National Assembly members from 2027 to 2021, of which Halifa was a key member?
You mean from 2017
yes. To 2021. So I am saying, coalition or no coalition, the parties that came together to remove Jammeh in 2017, coalition or no coalition, MOU or no MOU, manifesto or no manifesto, they have a duty to make sure there is good governance in this country. there is sustainable development in this country. But that full tenure, 2017 to 2021, was an abysmal failure and a betrayal of somebody like Sallah, who rose up, got himself killed because he was fighting for electoral reforms. Why on the first day, those electoral reforms, the government demands, 11 of them were not put on the floor of the parliament by Halifa Sallah, or, Keke Barrow, or, Alaji S. Dabo, or Samba Jallo, or Tumanjai, or Yakumba Jete, and so on. Why did they put it on the floor of the parliament?
Okay. Mr. Sallah, maybe to answer it in a different way, how has the fifth legislature contributed to electoral reforms in this country?
And before you answer that, if you just bear with me, Halifa, just one line. On July 6, 2021, Halifa Sallah spoke on the floor of the parliament about his committee. He said, before 31st December 2021, our committee is well positioned to put an end to the historic backlog in the submission of the activity report and financial statement stretching from the year end 2015, reported in the Foraya. National Assembly Public Enterprise Committee Chair explains. But today, you go to National Assembly, you will not see a report of the PEC committee for that period, and Halifa is not in the parliament anymore. That is gross failure. Every committee of the National Assembly should submit a report, annual report of the performance of your functions. Particularly the two, for me, most critical committees, the FPAC and the PEC.
Okay.
They are at the heart of our accountability, our governance, and our development.
Okay. Let's start with that criticism of PEC, because that's nearer home, if you like, before we go on now to talk about the achievement of the fifth legislature.
So two things, then we go to PEC. Mm-hmm. Section 160, subsection 5 of the Constitution says, where discrepancies of a criminal or fraudulent nature are discovered during the audit accounts by the Auditor General, he or she shall immediately cause a report of his or her finding to be submitted to the Inspector General of Police. I am saying, as far as corruption is concerned, the Auditor General has full powers to address it from any public institution. That is the issue. Number two, PEC. I have said, and it is clear, that we met a PEC with backlog up to 2014. My own responsibility. I was convinced that unless we put an end to that backlog, we will not be able to be current in our criticism of those institutions. Because the institution is not only to expose, but to put them on a very sound footing. And before we left, up to 2019, we had put everything in place. And what we have done in our handing over notes, I will go back and talk to my colleagues to see how far they have gone. But as he rightly said, by the time we finish our report, and it's a 5-year report, and it had to be a 5-year report. 1-year report is history. It's talking about 2014, 2015, 2016, when we were not National Assembly members. What is the use? So we were building up a stock to be able to provide a 5-year report. By the time we finished 2015 to 2019, we had come to the end of our term. And I had promised those who are now responsible for PEC that any time they want to meet me, I can meet them, and we can find a way of submitting the report in another way, because reports of the National Assembly are not the property of chairpersons of the National Assembly. They are properties of the National Assembly, and they have to be approved by a committee. We had a committee. So I had said that, and he can go and find out from the very inception of this legislature that I'm willing to meet the chairman. Then we can organize a forum where the submission to that report can be given officially, because they would be asking for it. I cannot submit it officially now. And obviously, you will see that it shapes the whole public enterprise structure, architecture of the country. And we hope that when they concede to that, we'll invite.
Well, that has to be
the
most important report as far as the SOEs, their administrations are concerned. And I think that report should be prioritized. So what will it take? What will it take for you and the sixth legislature to work together to get this report done?
Well, he can go back and talk to the chairman and see whether I had not approached them so that they should invite me for a discussion.
Oh, you've approached them already?
Okay, let's not put them in the picture. Let's deal this thing with me. I don't want him to divert me.
Yeah.
Let me say that I have no qualm in being taken to task on that matter.
Okay.
And the National Assembly is listening to me, the chairman is listening to me. They are people of good faith, and I am ready to cooperate with them so that we can at least carry out our national function. But what I'm emphasizing is how Maddie continues to accuse me of betraying my function because I've not taken a bill in the National Assembly. I have said that I went to the National Assembly not to be an ordinary National Assembly member. I went there for a transformative agenda. That's what I campaigned. I went there thinking that the coalition will function and that I will help in the constitutional reform process, transitional justice process, and the process of ensuring that the Human Rights Commission would be so empowered that human rights violations will come to an end. I went there to work as part of a team. And no one doubts that when it came to the discussion of the Constitution, I played my major role.
What do you think of the Human Rights Commission? Do you think it has been empowered in such a manner that human rights abuses, gross human rights abuses could be stopped in this country?
You see, what is important is to realize that it's just an act of the National Assembly. This should have been fused into the Constitution as a structure of the Constitution. A Peace Council, Human Rights Council, all should be part of, just like the Independent Electoral Commission, and given all the powers needed.
Okay.
That is not there.
Yeah.
And you look at for example, what he's saying, there are certain things that no one could have done more without the constitutional reform process.
Certain things like?
Look at the NIA. They tried to change their name to SIS.
But in the Constitution, it continues.
Section 191 is national. So you must amend the Constitution before you talk about it. And they did not want to have arresting powers and all this. Mm-hmm. So essentially what I'm saying, the principal document was the Constitution. And I went to the National Assembly for one term, is what I promised, so that we can carry out that process of constitutional reform, institutional reform. I was marooned in the National Assembly, and I did my best. Let him tell the truth. If you look at bills, how many bills came to the National Assembly? How many bills were referred to PEC? What we did as PEC.
His argument is you should have sponsored a private member bill.
Well, I'm saying, and I'll repeat that, I did not go to the National Assembly to make a show. I went to be a substantive National Assembly member. When I finished what I could do under those circumstances, that's why I departed.
Peter,
yes,
Peter, again, a bunch of misleading statements from Halifa. And I don't need to remind Halifa that the National Assembly has 4 functions. They have a lawmaking function, they have an oversight function, they have a representation function, and they have a resource distribution function. So to equate presenting a bill as showmanship is a misleading comment, because that is a function of the National Assembly. So any function you perform of the National Assembly, you are not doing showmanship. No, Halifa.
Could I clarify? No. I am not saying taking a private member's bill is showmanship. I am saying Halifa Sallah, who went to the National Assembly for substantive transformation of the nation, constitutional reform would have been engaged in showmanship by taking a bill and saying, we want a term limit. Taking another bill, they say, I am saying Halifa Sallah, I'm not saying National Assembly members. I hope that was clear.
I did
that
not
was
say
not my
that.
role.
I did not also say that. You said to put a bill before it's a showmanship.
No,
for you, not for everyone, for you.
Him, yes.
So that's what I mean. So I'm not misleading anyone. And I don't misquote me too. I did not say that is your only purpose there, or you fail simply because you did not present a bill. That is one of your functions I said you failed to do, like many others also failed to do. But you failed in the very purpose you said took you there. That is transformation, or the transformative agenda. Because it is not just presenting bills, it's not just lawmaking. Your oversight functions to check the executive, to discipline the executive, to make sure public wealth is used for the public interest. That no one plunders public wealth. You failed in that responsibility. So you should have resigned, probably, before.
So what could he have done that he hasn't done?
He has failed to do the oversight. One, as chair of the PEC, Halifa should have received Auditor General's reports. He has received reports from public enterprises. He has seen lapses. He should have taken up those lapses, recommend either to the police or to some other authority for investigation.
But he says that's the Auditor General's
responsibility. No. The Auditor General submits to the National Assembly. The National Assembly, they review, and National Assembly is the supreme decision-making body in this country, Peter. So the National Assembly has, and they have done that in some instances, to refer matters to the police. National Assembly can do that. National Assembly, Halifa should have done that. That wasn't done. So he has allowed, therefore, SOEs to continue to plunder our wealth. Not to mention many other unconstitutional illegal acts of the executive, such as the supplementary appropriation bills, which are all unconstitutional, the declaration of state of emergency during the COVID, which were unconstitutional, the violation of those declarations by President Barrow at that time are not held to account. We saw in UK how the UK Parliament held to account their Prime Minister for violating a COVID restriction. So Halifa could have done a lot more. So that transformation he's talked about, he did not do that. The legal reforms, why? The government, they call it SIS. But this entire security sector reform. As a National Assembly member, he could put a motion on the floor of the Parliament to tell the Minister of Interior, Minister of Justice, bring this act for review. The Police Act, the NIA Act, the Government Armed Forces Act, the Prisons Act, and so on.
He just told you that doing that for him...
No, he is misleading that part because Halifa knows.
Let me put it that he does not understand National Assembly procedures.
Halifa, I understand National. Nobody understands National Assembly in this country more than me.
Let me explain why.
Let him explain.
He says the National Assembly has powers to send somebody to this police station for corruption. Mm-hmm. I would want him to show me which section of the Constitution gives the National Assembly that power.
Maddie, can you?
He will not be able to produce it. That's why he's just talking. Number two, National Assembly has committees. And it is the committees that are responsible for engaging the ministries and reviewing everything they are doing. Again, he's not informed. I'm part of the Defense and Security Committee. And all these institutions have already drafted their bills, draft bills on reforms of their legislative dimensions. So the security sector reform process has been monitored by that committee, and they engage the security forces on a continuous basis. One time they were all asked to come and submit all their strategic plans, all their laws for review. So, for me, I feel that if you ask my colleagues in the committees whether I had performed my function, I believe they will say, yes, I have performed my functions.
Thank you, Mr. Salah. Maddie, I see you have the Constitution in your hand. Can you quote a section where it says the National Assembly or its committees have the right to, take SOEs?
In fact, the committees do not have power to act independently. The only power they have is to report to the general body and make recommendation. And if approved, that is the position of the National Assembly. In fact, the committees are not even supposed to discuss their reports until it is submitted to the National Assembly. So I don't know why he would say that the committees could send people, that's not...
Have you found the section of the Constitution that...
Under the section of the Auditor General, the Auditor General submits reports to the National Assembly under section 160, sub 4, okay, or 224. Now, under this section, the National Assembly has the powers to make inquiries or to call witnesses that are mentioned.
We wish you a
that are mentioned.
Is the computer telling us it's time to go? Go ahead.
Yeah, that are mentioned to subject them to an inquiry. Now, it is out of that, in the preceding section, that the Auditor General has the power to take things to the police. And yes, it's the Auditor General that if he finds anyone of any discrepancies by anyone, can take the matter to the police. But what I'm just saying, Peter, when you understand the laws and norms of the Parliament, the National Assembly, it is within their powers to ask any public institution.
So when you say theirs, then it means the whole Parliament. The Parliament.
Yes, but let's come through the process.
Would you allow me to help you?
No, I don't need that. The point is, as chair of the PEC, and these massive discrepancies have been found out, the Auditor General, as he said, has the power to take the matter to court. To the IGP. But at the same time, PEC, knowing the functions of PEC can recommend. Because PEC, when they review, they submit their report committees to the floor, and in that report, their findings and recommendations, they make them there. So PEC equally has the power to make recommendation to either the Auditor General or to the IGP that based on the Auditor General's report, based on other reports we've received, investigate Gamtel, investigate NAWEC, and so on.
Okay.
And that was not done.
Okay. All right. We have to bring this debate.
Yes, but it must be clear. I think it must be clear that there is no provision in the law that empowers Parliament to send somebody to the police station. This is separation of powers. What is important is to know that Parliament can recommend for action to be taken. It can recommend special audits. It can recommend the Auditor General to take the actions that the Auditor General had proposed in a document. Yes, it can make recommendations. What essentially I am emphasizing is that the legislator he's talking about did shape this country. It is the legislator that could call ministers who must come to appear before committees. He talked about the state of emergency. In fact, I put up a motion at that time because the law is very clear. It says that, yes, declare a state of emergency, but within 7 days. If we are sitting, 21 days, if we're not sitting, you must bring the motion for adoption by 2/3 majority. When they failed to do that, I put up a motion. And I saw Maddie criticizing me. Somebody put up a motion that the president must come and report to Parliament. No, and he's saying that person was right.
I did not criticize you on that.
He said that person was right. I knew that nobody can force the executive to come to Parliament because Section 77 has provided the vice president to be a representative.
So you can't. Section 77A.
Nobody can compel the president to come to the national. Show me the law. Read it. Let the whole nation hear what you have to say.
The 77(2) states the National Assembly may request the president to attend a sitting of the National Assembly for the discussion of a matter of national importance.
Yes, may. Is it saying shall? Then
No,
go
no,
further. Then
no,
go
no,
further.
no.
Then go further.
Further is about the vice president.
Just read.
The vice president shall answer in the National Assembly for matters affecting the president. The vice.
No. Read it again. Don't mislead the public. We are talking about read the Constitution.
The vice president shall answer in the National Assembly. Shall.
Okay,
Yes.
Go ahead. Do you know what shall means in law? It's mandatory.
Mandatory. But
May is not mandatory.
No. Let me clarify this May issue.
This man has been misleading. No, I should not use misleading. Because he does not want that.
No, you can't say that.
Maddie, no, it's not fair.
Peter, when the Constitution says May, the National Assembly may, it's an option that the National Assembly has. They may. But the moment they do, the President has no option but to come.
No. Read the second one. Read the second one again.
The second one is what talking about.
Say it.
I have said it.
Read it.
It was section 77.
Read it. Read 2. Read 2.
You want to mislead.
He wants to mislead. That's why he does not want to read 2.
Okay,
Read 2.
2 says the National Assembly may request. 3 says the Vice President shall. Answer.
Is it not clear? May.
No. Let us clarify this here.
May and shall. May request. Yes, you can request for the President to come. And if you request for the President to come,
he has no choice.
3.
He has to come.
Wait, 3. What does it say? 3.
3 says the Vice President shall answer in the National Assembly for matters affecting the President. Now, that is only saying the Vice President has the authority, the power, the responsibility to represent the
obligation
to represent the President in the National Assembly. That is very different.
And must come.
That's very different from 2, which 2 is saying the National Assembly may, meaning the National Assembly may do it or they may not do it. But the moment they do it, it's a constitutional provision.
No, he sends the Vice President.
The Vice President, it's not, he cannot, delegate the Vice President in that instance. If they invoke Section 77.
Is that what that clause says?
3 is not saying that.
No, 3, if you go to even 4, it will say the Vice President or a minister shall, when requested by the National Assembly. So,
shall is mandatory.
He has 2 options.
That's why we must force ministers to come.
The President can either come himself or the President can send the Vice President based on 3. But based on 2, when the National Assembly makes the call that Mr. President come, the President cannot say, no, I won't come and send the Vice President.
It doesn't say that, Maddie. It doesn't say that. It gives the House the option to ask the President to come. And even after asking the President to come, it does not say because they have asked the President to come, he must come.
No. The Assembly can insist that the President
comes. In fact, it says it's the Vice President who should represent.
It doesn't say that.
The President is not a king. And Halifa knows democratic norms and values.
Utopia again.
All right? The President, no, this is a republic.
Utopia.
No, I think this is a republic.
You're not speaking the language of the law. It's good that okay. Let's not criticize Maddie.
No, criticize me.
For being so enthusiastic and so vigorous in pursuing what is his principles. I respect him for that. I told him that several times. But essentially, I'm an elderly person with a gray hair. I cannot go back to that type of orientation where I can speak outside of laws, do things outside of what is reasonable and justifiable in a democratic society. Essentially, I think this convergence should continue on a new plane. We should not continue to attack each other or betraying anybody. Betrayal is a very serious word, especially a solemn occasion like an official burial ceremony for Sunday. He's attacking us that we went there and we were hypocrites, sort of. But essentially, people went there because they felt what happened. Sunday did not want to be a hero of anybody. Sunday should not have died the way he did. The country is a republic. The duty of a republic is to protect the citizens. And the instrument of the state should be an instrument of protection, not instrument of coercion and oppression. Both of us will agree with that. So each of us should have indicted the state that existed and work to ensure that such a state is eradicated, that we put in its place a state that protects its citizens. I would tell him that I am not infallible. That's why I left the National Assembly, because I look at my constituency and see how it is rotting. And all I can do there in the National Assembly is to criticize, explain, call the minister to ask questions. For me, I know that unless we can build sovereign national wealth, that can address the needs and aspirations of the people, we'll just be criticizing. But a state that depends entirely on loans. Just imagine you are taking almost 12 billion just as grants and budget support. And what you contribute only in taxes, maybe about 13 in your revenue is about 13 billion. And over 12 billion of that will be just tax. Only 1.5 billion will be something that is not non-tax. So we do not have a productive state. We can agree on that. We can do all the criticism we can, but that state can never deliver. That is why I stand for system change. In that National Assembly, I could not continue to repeat that over and over again, so I had to do productive things that serve the interests of the National Assembly, and I think they appreciated it.
Thank you, Mr. Salah. Very nice words to end with. Maddie?
Yeah, it's sad, Peter. This country is 50-something years old. The conditions in which our people live
58 this year
is utterly unacceptable and inexcusable, and it is squarely because elected and appointed public officials have failed this country. Every day, especially on Tuesday, you bring public officials here, and they give narrative upon narrative, only to give us explanations and excuses, as we've just heard from Halifa. Yet our people continue to live in misery, in destitution, in poverty, and those public officials continue to live the life they live above us. And look, yeah, no, I mean, this is the reality. Because he confirmed himself that his
If I wanted to indict him, whilst I was doing all the things to change 2016, this man was in Europe.
Doing what I could do.
What were you doing there? What were you doing there?
No. That is a very unfair. That's a very unfair and a very dishonest criticism.
I was facing.
You were doing what you were doing.
I could have died.
And everyone was doing what they could do.
For him, he was out there.
Yes.
It is this man now who is criticizing us for being disloyal. Let
I'm not saying you are disloyal. I'm saying you have failed.
Failing. What is failure?
The country from 2017 to 2021
Maddie,
has elected and appointed
you have not
public
even
officials
served the country not to talk about failing a country.
Fine. I am serving the country. I don't have to be elected to serve the country. I am serving the country.
With words?
Yes.
Armchair?
Yes.
Well,
words are powerful. Words change.
That's okay.
Words bring change. And you know that, Halifa.
That is armchair activism.
Well, I did not see you pick up arms.
We went concretely to organize structures and change this country in 2016.
I have built structures. I have built structures all my adult life. In schools, in communities, enlightening people,
but
in public institutions. So I have done my part in this country.
You are now proving
and I'm so proud
that you are an armchair activist because you are indicting people who concretely had proven that
if I am an armchair activist,
to serve this country.
You are equally an armchair politician. Because I have done the political education you have done. I have built structures in this country. I have gone on my own resources and an official capacity.
Okay.
So,
good luck.
You are elected. I am holding you to account for your position in public service.
All and you have to hold each and every. The young people of this country should tell Maddie to give account where he was in 2016. I am ready
for that debate by any young person on any platform, anytime.
Where he was in 2015. Start asking him to give
you account. You want to tell me every Gambian who was out of this country in 2016 therefore did not contribute anything?
No, I have not said anything. I'm saying
why should
let the young people
hold
you into account when Jammeh was here.
When Jammeh was here,
what you were doing
is my witness.
And how you were engaging Jammeh.
I have confronted
until
Jammeh.
The change occurred.
I have confronted Jammeh. Peter Gomez is my witness. We were together at Radio Gambia. They sacked him 2 weeks. I resigned. Not to mention the many, protestations I did at Radio Gambia.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. I'm sure this debate will continue elsewhere. You've been listening to a special edition of Coffee Time with Peter Gomez featuring Mr. Halifa Sallah. Thank you very much for coming. And Mr. Madi Jobarteh, thank you very much for coming. And on that animated note, Coffee Time with Peter Gomez now takes a weekend break. The program will be back on Monday. Have a very nice weekend.